let's talk about the conflict between the state of Florida and the federal government. So the Biden administration has been very overt in its opposition to you personally. You've had Jen Psaki ripping on you from the White House press room. You've had President Biden making not particularly oblique references about you during press conferences that he manages to get through. And the sort of ratcheting up of the battle between the state of Florida and the federal government has become very clear to a lot of folks. Frankly, it's been encouraging to me because I think that states actually need to stand up to the predations of the federal government at this point. But can you give us sort of some insight as to, is there anything going on behind the scenes? Is there any conversation between the governor's office and the White House?
Well, I would say anything that comes up, they will try to politicize it. Education, health, you name it. That's just how they are. That's how they're wired. And so, for example, the monoclonal antibodies, when we had the height of our summer wave, they cut our monoclonal antibodies. I rolled out a very successful program. We had 25 sites. People were getting it. It had great results, and they cut it. I had to go find another company, GlaxoSmithKline, do a separate deal to be able to paper over the decline. Now, they've cut it so much, but our infections have gone down even more that we're ending up in good shape at this point. But they deliberately did it. They said there was no shortage. They were just doing it for, quote, equity purposes. And you got to wonder why you would do that. You also look at what they're doing with the contractor mandates and the OSHA mandates. Look, I think that is more directed at states like Florida because some of these big blue states will probably impose those mandates on their own. They know we will not do that. And so we're fighting back against that very strongly. We have a special session of the legislature. We have the lawsuits across the board about all those things. But they don't respect states like Florida's prerogatives. And the fact is, things like schools they try to butt into. We have conflicts where some school boards weren't following our state's Parents' Bill of Rights. And so the State Board of Education took the salaries away from the elected politicians. Biden comes in and they put the money back in. They're bailing out politicians who are disobeying state law. How is that an appropriate use of the federal government? And we're going to address that in our special session. But time and time again, they want to come in and do it. I think that they've really failed on this. Cutting the monoclonal antibodies went over like a lead balloon in Florida. Their obsession with forced masking 5-year-olds has not gone over well. I think most parents look at it now and they understand kids are doing well without this and they need to be able to do that. And so I think it's not worked for them, but I think this is just their viewpoint. Biden is not really tethered by the Constitution. I think he's got a lot of radical elements in his administration that push him to do certain things, and I don't think he has the wherewithal or the leadership ability to say no. Even Obama would tell the lefties at sometimes that they were going too far. Bill Clinton would sometimes. Biden's not doing that. He just doesn't have the capacity to do it. And so they're really pushing him in a direction, I think, that is very dangerous for the country and quite frankly shows his presidential candidacy was a fraud because he said he was going to unite the country. He demagogued Trump on COVID. He said he would shut down the virus. That hasn't happened. And he said he would unite the country. And in fact, on policy, he's been the most divisive president of my lifetime, more divisive than the other Democrats even that have been in office.
So let's talk about Biden and his presidency for a second. So President Biden obviously is really deeply underwater at this point. His poll numbers look really bad. They're in the low 40s, maybe high 30s. His vice president is somehow even worse off, despite the fact that she's been completely absent from the national scene while not visiting the southern border. And this administration seems to be in a bit of disarray. But as you mentioned, they keep doubling down on this policy. And as they keep doubling down on their policies, it seems like core to that policy is attempting to cram down national mandates on states. So what tools do you have as a governor of a major state at your disposal in order to hamper that? So take, for example, the vaccine mandate. So they're trying to cram down this vaccine mandate, which essentially forces all companies with more than 100 employees to either vax their employees or test them once a week or fire them. And they're trying to do this via OSHA. It's unconstitutional. Our company has filed a lawsuit in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals about that because our headquarters is over in Tennessee. But what sort of tools do states have at their disposal to resist the federal government when they go this far?
Well, I think we have legal tools and legislative tools. So the legal tools, we've sued as well in the 11th Circuit. You have the great Fifth Circuit decision that came down for the stay. I think that's probably going to stick, which will be great. But we're also having the legislature come in and provide substantive protections for employees in the state of Florida. No one should have to choose between their job and this jab. If it's something that's good for you and you want to do, that's fine, but you shouldn't be forced out of work. And then just think about who this applied to. nurses, truck drivers, all these, they've been working the whole time. They've been working the whole time, and now all of a sudden you're going to potentially cast them aside. So we're providing those protections. The legislature is going to debate some other things. We've actually talked about taking some of Biden's stimulus money and paying off the OSHA fines for the business that don't comply. Although having this stay in the court, may make that be something that we don't have to do. We also, in terms of the illegal immigration. So he's got a massive border surge that he's invited because he basically overruled Trump's policies that were working. And so I sent people in June and July to help Governor Abbott. And my guys in Florida, they're interdicting a lot of these guys. Now, if they had drugs or they were trafficking, they'd get arrested and Texas would take them. But if they were just illegally crossing the border, our guys would turn them over to the feds. The feds would just release them, or they'd put them on a bus or something like that. So we're looking from a defensive posture in Florida. If they're dumping people in the middle of the night here, I want to be able to have an opportunity to do that and maybe transport them elsewhere. We also are looking at maybe penalizing the contractors who are facilitating, which is effectively violations of federal law by transporting people who are in the country illegally. So we're looking at all of those. And of course, we're suing Biden on his catch and release policies as well. They don't even really publish the policies. They just kind of behave recklessly and to try to avoid any type of judicial oversight. But I can tell you, having 200,000 people cross every month, that's basically a medium-sized American city that they're importing illegally from all, and not just Mexico. In fact, very minor Mexico. It's over 100 countries because people know Biden's president. You can get to that southern border, you're home free.
So one of the things I think a lot of conservatives love about your governorship and about your sort of persona publicly is your combativeness, is your willingness to go right at the media. Where did you pick that up and why?
Because the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away.